Welcome to A Fresh Face in Hell. I'm your host, Jonathan Evison. Every week we talk to someone new and interesting, somebody intellectually curious, somebody who will hopefully renew our faith in this cold, cruel world we live in. A Fresh Face in Hell. Today I want to talk about comedies, films in particular, from the subtle genius to the total lowbrow. Anything's fair game. How comedies function, why they work, how they don't work. Imagine, if you will, a wide-ranging conversation that involves lists because, lists are always fun and they tend to keep me on task. Some debate because, debate is always lively. And also just discussion about the nuts and bolts of comedy. So I needed a perfect conversation partner for this, so I thought of my old pal Warren Etheredge, film critic, film scholar, filmmaker, film curator. Warren has seen more films than anyone I know, and he's got an opinion about every one of them. He's the founder of the Warren Report and the producer and host of the Emmy-nominated series The Highbrow. Please welcome to the show, Warren Etheredge. Warren, how are you, buddy? Thanks for joining us on A Fresh Face in Hell.
I'm happy to be right here in hell. It feels like it every day.
He's already laughing. See, we got a good show in store for you. We're going to talk about comedy, as I said. So when I briefed Warren, I said, let's make a list of some of our favorite comedies and maybe some of our not so favorite comedies. And we're not talking the Criterion Collection necessarily, just comedies that make us laugh. Guilty pleasures are allowed. In fact, I'll just say off the bat, when I made my list, I did not highly curate it. I just kind of thought of comedies that came to mind first. So I thought we'd just use our lists as a jumping off point to an organically developing conversation about comedy. So who wants to start? You want to pick one in no particular order? Just pick a place to start, buddy.
I just want to reassure you that I did the same thing. I made a list, and even though I teach film and I should know all the, to think about what would be the snobby right choice, I did none of that. This is a totally unfiltered look at what's inside my mind in terms of comedy.
That's what I want. That's why I think it's purer that way, because when you get to lists like this, like I see literature lists and I see people put on, they put on these really dense works that I know they had no pleasure reading, but they're just trying to look smart. Well, I'll start. One of my favorite movies that I think is underrated maybe not underrated, but it's just, maybe its influence is underrated because it spawned two different television shows on two continents. It totally infiltrated all advertising and totally reframed the malaise of the corporate era. And that is Mike Judge's Office Space. I just love it. I can watch it over and over.
I love Office Space. There's so much to like about that movie. I think there's such a weird thing to say in terms of a comedy like this, but I think there may be some career best performances in that film. I think Diedrich Bader is fantastic in that. I think that Stephen Root, who is always funny, may be at his best in Office Space. I love the film.
I would agree. And Ron Livingston, who's always kind of the same, just sort of almost typecast himself there. I tried to watch him in that one about the Seattle kind of ex-Seattle grunge writer loser. Yeah, I didn't buy him, I guess, because I know that guy, you know what I mean? And I just wasn't buying it. And also I thought, oh, there's a guy from Office Space. I just think it's amazing. I mean, this whole idea of prairie dogging, all that. I remember for about 3 years after that film, every advertising from a corporation had everybody in booths. We never really saw that before. It was kind of like, in a weird way, the Easy Rider of its generation, as opposite as they seem. I mean, it just totally captured the moment, like that. It captured that phenomenon. And Mike Judge has sort of reused it a little bit. I also really enjoyed Silicon Valley, but you can see almost scenes remade in a different context.
Yeah, and Mike Judge is just really good. I've had the pleasure of hosting him and chatting with him. He really has a very sharp, specific take on comedy, and I hadn't put it on my list because I wasn't thinking TV. But Silicon Valley, I think, is a pretty damn good show.
I love it too. The characters,
yeah. I'd take even T.J. Miller, who seems like a total putz, is really funny on that show.
Yeah, well, apparently
he lasted.
Apparently the guy was a pain in the ass on set or something like that. I've seen him in several roles where I like him, like that one with Paul Rudd, where they're like, "Oh, just a couple of guys making candles." What a cliche.
That film is on my list, Our Idiot Brother.
Oh, yeah, it should be on my list. Let's talk about that one. That one is really good.
I think that's, to me, of the films on my list, that's one of the ones that I think is truly underappreciated. I think there are plenty of people who have not seen it. It's worth it for the end credits where you see some of the outtakes from T.J. Miller and Paul Rudd talking. That's a lot, and it's a fantastic ensemble cast. And Paul Rudd is really funny, and he's a little different than we normally see Paul Rudd, which I appreciated.
I think so too. Yeah, he's just I like it's just he's got pathos. You just feel so bad for him, when he's selling the weed to the cop and you're like, "Oh, dude, you poor knucklehead." I mean, I know that guy. You know what I mean? Well-intentioned, like, yeah, and I would agree he's a little out of his space because Paul Rudd is always Paul Rudd, and I've had the pleasure of, being beside him on set for The Fundamentals of Caring, and I was surprised because he's not, I was surprised and I wasn't surprised. He's not a big personality, you know what I mean? But nor is he a big personality in any of his roles. He was kind of just, he was pretty straight, but super nice, super genuine, which he always seems. But it is nice to see a guy sort of outside his, you know, comfort level of, and what is the name of the gal that plays the bitchy ex? She's got quite a bit of
Oh,
range too. I'm trying to remember her name, but she plays the dready, bitchy ex that
yeah.
takes the dog and stuff. I've seen her in a bunch of stuff, and she's actually pretty dynamic. And
Is it
I'll
is it
have to
is it Catherine Hahn?
maybe. And yeah,
I think
sounds
it is
good to
Catherine
me.
Hahn.
You're
Yeah.
the film guy,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I think it is. If we were making a list of funny title changes, I think, changing the title of your book to Fundamentals of Caring is one of the funniest.
yeah. Well, I mean, it could have been like roadside distractions or something like that. So I was actually kind of happy with that change because at least it was close. Because if they totally changed the title, there's going to be less association with the books. For me, that was all about moving books, right? Like I didn't care if it was good or not. I liked it. It was fine. I mean, I thought it was cute. It was heartwarming. It wasn't the book. It didn't have all the sad rage and the comedy has a little more pathos in the book, I think. And the book is more difficult. The book has a wider emotional range. But I mean, all things considered, I have to be pretty happy because I've seen some really horrible adaptations, and they pretty much did what I thought they would did, which was to make it a road movie because Hollywood loves a road movie. And, Rob made some interesting choices that I think were probably wise choices given what he was trying to accomplish, but, yeah, I mean, at least it still had the fundamentals and caring in it, you know what I mean?
Now a major motion picture.
Yeah, well, and it stays on Netflix forever, dude. It gets like syphilis. It just keeps giving, man. That thing is just like because it never, stuff they license stuff and it comes on and off the queue, but that thing is like always right there in your comedy. So tons of people watch it. It's got like 100,000 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't, what kills me is when people say, "Oh, I like the movie better." And I'm like, "What is wrong with you?"
Did you see book sales spike like double digits after that?
It's actually been more of a slow burn. I mean, it outpaced its original sales run for sure, but it's different than a theatrical release, and that was also the first time that Netflix had outbid the studios, so they didn't really know what they were doing as well. But with a theatrical release, they usually, you get that big, like the numbers just triple right away. This was like, I don't want to call it a slow burn. It's just been steady. And here, 6 years later, I mean, it's still backlists really well. So it's good for legacy because it just keeps your backlist going. It's hard to keep books in print.
Nicely
Uh,
done.
so let's see. I want to talk about one of my favorite films, and this is hard because it's Woody Allen, and he's a complex figure, and it's really hard to like him at this point. And I don't know who I believe. I tend to believe the victims in almost every case. But and I'm also because my brother was a lounge singer. I am also I have a very specific love for this film. But Broadway Danny Rose, I think, is a hugely underrated film.
I can see that. I really am in the camp of I can't revisit Woody. You know, I spent an hour in a hotel room with Woody, which is not exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, I'm not a fan, and, yeah. You know what it is? It pains me because I love some of his early comedies, I really do. I personally, love take the money and run. I would love to go back and watch that.
Sleeper was my favorite movie when I was like 5.
It's and it probably stays funny, but it's hard to watch somebody who makes jokes about the same crimes he's accused of.
Yeah, no, Manhattan. Ooh, that's really difficult to watch. And, like Claire Dieter, my friend Claire, wrote a book called Monsters about this very thing, the difficulty of separating the art from the artist. And I have to even put him on this list. And I knew it'd be controversial because of that. But I just think that film does something with pathos and comedy. You know what I mean? That is, a lot of my comedies on my list are pretty slapstick and pretty lowbrow. This one really does have a lot of pathos. You know what I mean? It's got Danny's such a pathetic character, and then you've got Barney Dunn, and then you've got the twins. You don't even know what the twins are, which I think is comic genius. Like, they're having that sad Thanksgiving theme with the frozen turkeys and the phone rings, and Woody Allen's like, "It's the twins. We don't even know who could the twins possibly be." I mean, he's got a blinding xylophone player, a stuttering ventriloquist. You know what I mean? So who are the twins? I thought that was a brilliant comic touch for its understatement. But I wanted to throw that out there just for the very reason that he is sort of controversial and he doesn't deserve the legacy because of that. But that one, I'm going to have a love with it because my personal association with it is more to do with my brother than Woody Allen.
I've got, I have to say, it's a really tough thing, and everybody comes down to their own personal take on it, is that it's impossible for me to deny the comic genius of Woody Allen. It's hard for me to deny what you're talking about, the pathos. I think there's like a period of peak Woody. I love the early goofy comedy, but when you're talking about Broadway Danny Rose and you're talking about Crimes and Misdemeanors and Husbands and Wives, there's a period of his work which is just beautifully bittersweet and funny. So I can never say that he's not an accomplished comedic filmmaker. It just comes down to a personal
Just a
choice.
creepy human being. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like Zelig's another one of those that is just pretty groundbreaking. But yeah, I agree. We'll dispense of Woody Allen. You suck, but Broadway Danny Rose is a funny film. And he did get to a point where he just started to satirize himself. You notice that thing in his directorial style where he makes everyone act like him. Everyone has that sort of stuttering neurosis, or like you can just see the actor and you're going, the actor is trying to, it's like he's feeding him the line. I want you to say it this way. That gets annoying.
I wonder about that because it's an interesting thing that Woody has a reputation of being a hands-off director in large part. So I've always wondered, is it him telling the actors to be more like him, and there's a whole string of them who have, or is it the actors deciding this is the only way to deliver these lines?
Yeah, that's a good question because the lines are pretty specific. I've always just kind of felt like they just seem like they're aping him completely. So, all right. Well, we can move on from what it's your turn. You can do.
I want to talk about the film that I've watched the most in my life. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but it's an influential film. I have had terrible insomnia for a long stretch of my life, so I watched this every night to try to go to sleep because I knew it backwards and forwards. The Man with Two Brains, Steve Martin.
Interesting.
And I think one of the most influential things in my life, comedically at least. There are so many different types of jokes. It's my favorite thing where it's highbrow and lowbrow. It's not middlebrow, but has jokes that are really high end and jokes that are just, fart jokes stupid.
But it is brainy.
It is. Oh, I see what you did there. Oh, Mr. Everson, I see why you are a man of letters.
All right, you're going to have to sell me on this one a little because I've only seen it once or twice, and I don't, yeah, so this is your job. You sell me on it. Because I did watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on Thanksgiving, and Steve Martin's performance is so great when he's giving that, how do they do it? How do you do it? They ask, because I've been with, I mean, that whole monologue is like brilliant. Like, so I'm up Steve Martin, but he never should have done the Pink Panther. Nobody should have touched that
No.
either. But sell me on The Man with Two Brains so I can get excited about revisiting it and show it to my kids.
You know what it is that Steve Martin, in something like All of Me, or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, is the Steve Martin that he probably most would like to be. Funny and dramatic, right? Like, he has a good mix of the two. To me, Man with Two Brains is the closest to getting his wild and crazy guy spirit on camera. So, again, there's some heady jokes, but there's also just a lot of physical shtick that's fantastic. When we actually get into him becoming a killer in the second half of the film, going around and injecting victims with window cleaner, he's really funny and monstrous in those moments. His sexual neediness is possibly dated but hilarious in the beginning, and Kathleen Turner's performance is stellar. Like, I never would have thought of Kathleen Turner as funny, but she's really funny in this film. But there's so many lines. There's so many moments that, will stick with me, forever. Not only is he dead, he's 6,000 miles away. There's, like, some good classic sort of Marx Brothers shtick, and also, they're not assholes, they're azaleas. Like, there's just so many things that, make me happy every single time I hear them.
That is, you know what? That's great because that totally surprises me. That is not a movie in fairness, I can't really comment because I think I've seen it once or twice, like I said, a long time ago. But now I'm excited to go back and revisit it. Yeah, we just the Pink Panther thing though. What is it? Like nobody should ever try to do Clouseau. Robert Bernini, it was cringeworthy to watch. Steve Martin was even worse. It's just like why? I guess as an artist, I could see wanting to take on that challenge, but like. I mean, it's just such a don't go there, don't you think?
Yeah, I didn't and I like Steve Martin. I didn't like it when it was announced. I didn't like seeing it. Even as a kid, I was thinking like, "Ah, God, you can't do this." And I occasionally see them like, people on social media using the clip of the hamburger, the scene. I go like, "Oh, that's so lame compared to Peter Sellers."
I know, and the thing about it is also, like, if we're being honest, I've gone back and, I had the box set. I rewatched all of them. They're really not that good and uneven. I mean, I could really take all the best Peter Sellers moments and squeeze them into one film. One of them is better than all the rest, and I always forget which one it is, and I get the other one, and I put it in, and I go, this isn't the one. And also, speaking of guys, I mean, back to, like, a sort of Woody Allen thing is, like, Peter Sellers was, like, the biggest asshole ever. Like, I mean, did you ever see, what's his name? Jeffrey, they did the biopic about, Peter Sellers. Um,
Oh,
it's
a
it's
biopic
gruesome.
of
Like, he had a
wow.
really weird relationship, Victorian, creepy relationship with his mom, almost like serial killer-like, and, like, just he's just an asshole. So he's another guy that's sort of hard to like because he's so brilliant. I mean, I go back to all the way back to the Goon Show with, Peter Sellers, because we were listening to the Goon Show a lot when back in the Shaken Not Stirred days when I was doing my comedy variety hour thing, and, he's brilliant, but he's another guy. It's like in Being There. I mean, God, the performance is brilliant, but I just can't because he's such an asshole. It's like the Woody Allen thing.
Yeah, the only distinction I make is that, A, he's a genius, B, to me, an an asshole, is better than a pederast. It's just a line that I draw. But, Peter Sellers is great. I take it the one moment from the Pink Panther movies, and I agree, like, when I've gone back, like, they really are thin, in terms of their comedy. But for, "Does your dog bite?" It will forever
That's a good
be
one.
lodged in my head.
Well, the scene in I think it's the second one where he's on the parallel bars, and then he swings over and then into the room and starts questioning everybody. "Murder? Who said murder?" And he, like, hits the beekeeper in the face with the thing, and his hand gets stuck in the knight's thing with the I mean, that, like, 2 minutes there is pretty brilliant. But, like, I was actually surprised because I loved them so much as a kid. And going back and revisiting them, they really are thin is the word. I mean, there's moments, but, like, yeah, I think you touched on what I would call the seminal moment of the whole thing, which is, "That is not my dog." Um,
Uh, and and also, Herbert Lom, in my mind, does not hold up well to revisiting.
is he
The
the
the chief
the
or
chief?
the
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like, oof, that is a thankless role, I realize, but, yeah,
So
it's
I'm gonna
not human.
toggle in between movies that we do like and don't like, or
Oh, okay.
I wanna talk just briefly about since we're talking about Peter Sellers, it seems like the right time. A movie that I find very overrated, and you're gonna probably cringe. I don't know, maybe you'll
We'll
surprise
see.
me. Doctor Strangelove. I don't find it that funny. I get the social critique, I get the absurdity. Yeah, it's funny to watch Slim Pickens riding that bomb, but I just for the amount of I feel like it's a comedy for people that aren't funny or something. I don't know. I just don't talk to me. What are your feelings on Doctor Strangelove? Because it's canonized as this classic comedy, and I just,
You know, Often I'll get a question about, like, what is the best film of all time? And people talk about that. And often with students or something, people will throw Citizen Kane on a list or something. And I'll ask them a question like, do you want to watch it again? And nobody ever wants to watch Kane again. And in my mind, Doctor Strangelove is sort of in that comedic category of like, I have a memory of it being good and I can appreciate things about it satirically now. But at the same time, I have zero desire to go back. And frankly, I don't even find the Slim Pickens part all that amusing.
No, me neither.
Or the war room, woohoo, like it's crazy. It feels like it's very much of its era and lives off its rep like a football player getting voted into the Pro Bowl years after their prime, but like we just know the name. So I'm sort of with you. I think Strangelove is overrated.
We are more simpatico than I thought. I thought you would come at this a little more highbrow than me because you're more of
No.
a student of the game. But like I mean, you just said something interesting about the film, which is like, would you want to go back and watch it? Can't we say this about a number of Kubrick films?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like the one with Malcolm,
Clockwork Orange. Huh.
Clockwork Orange. Brilliant, but like, I mean, dude, it's a bit of a slog. I mean, that's like a 3-hour film. I don't find myself wanting to return to that more than once every 20 years.
The only Kubrick film that I return to is The Shining. And again, to me, it'd be 2001 is one to go back, once a generation. But that's about it.
Yeah, no, I will go back to 2001. It often puts me to sleep, actually. I mean, it's a slow burn, but I find like on this subject of going to sleep to films, I kind of like science fiction. I'm not a reader of science fiction, never have been. I mean, I read a little Arthur C. Clarke and some of the classics of the genre or whatever, but I've never been a reader. But I tend to have a guilty pleasure watching, like late at night, watching science fiction films, and 2001 is so brilliant, and it's hard to its influence is so huge because you watch what is the one with the Christopher Nolan,
Interstellar.
that thing at the ending is so much like 2001 where he's behind the bookshelf and stuff. Like this idea of human consciousness is so similar. To come to that conclusion was just such a I wouldn't even call it a hat tip. It is almost sort of derivative. Anyway, what's a film that did you write down any film?
And not funny at all, Interstellar. But go ahead.
Yeah, but what about you? Talk to me about a film, a comedy that you feel is overrated.
Oh, anything by Adam Sandler. I don't know that I don't know that I can think of a funny Adam Sandler movie. And every time I see him do something like Punch Drunk Love or Uncut Gems, I think, oh, that's what he should be doing.
Exactly. That's how I've always felt. And it's who else is like that way? Was like that is Robin Williams. You see him in something like 24-hour Photo, and I'm like, holy shit, he is so creepy and believable. But what it is these guys, they're sort of comically antic.
Right.
It's just like this over-the-top potty humor antic. Well, not Robin Williams is the potty humor. He's just like a autistic kids on drugs or something. But Adam Sandler, he's all right when he's in one of those where he's playing more of the straight guy and Jennifer Aniston's his wife. It seems like there's like 20 films like that. Those are digestible. I can watch those with the kids, or the murder mystery ones. Those are digestible because he's not being as antic. He's just kind of, I don't know, being himself. Or something like Funny People. Like when it's interesting that comic actors, comedians can make the transition to be amazing actors quicker, it seems, than serious like stage actors can be funny.
Yeah, you can't make somebody funny.
Like Al Pacino. So I dare you, try to make Al Pacino funny. Name one time Al Pacino was funny.
Okay, I will.
Really?
Yes. But it's in the sort of Adam Sandler funny people mode. He did a movie called Author, which is I do remember light, romantic dramedy, I'd say, about him as a playwright. And I'd say that movie, Pacino actually has some charm and some humor.
Okay. It's been so long. Was it his delivery, his performance, or was it more the absurdity of the situations and
Yeah, it's not wacky, it's just that, like, oh, he can pull off levity in a way that I didn't think he could. I mean, even back then, I was such a Pacino fan, and I remain a Pacino fan, uh, but I didn't think he could do it, and he did. I think if you revisit Author, he actually shows you that he could do the murder mystery. He could fill in for Adam Sandler if necessary.
So, I'm making another list. I'm going to revisit The Man with Two Brains. I'm going to revisit Author. Uh, Robert De Niro, this is another guy that, I mean, you can make him funny, but it's usually something to do with his eyebrows or just, it's more his character that's funny. It's not the performance. I don't,
No.
yeah, even Robert Duvall. I mean, it's kind of hard to make, and I mean, Robert Duvall is one of my favorite actors,
Yeah.
but like, he can't do comedy.
No, he's not innately funny. I do wanna mention somebody another person who I thought was not funny until, seeing him in this movie, and that would be Tom Cruise. And to me, a modern classic is Tropic Thunder, uh,
Absolutely, and it should be on my list.
and there's so many things I love about that movie. I love Steve Coogan's director. I love, the RDJ's, bit, like, how can you not love that? Um, but it's really Tom Cruise as the, off the rails Hollywood producer that steals that.
Oh, so surprising performance, like, who you didn't even know he had it in him. Like, he's a really interesting guy. Like, have you ever seen the interview that I think, what is it, Christian Bale used as his inspiration for playing Patrick Bateman in, no, well, there's this interview, Tom Cruise tells this story, and you find yourself laughing out loud because it's so horrible. He's talking about, because he's a pilot, right? He's talking about how he's flying this plane, and it's like a little twin prop plane or something. There's 3 people in it, but they only have enough oxygen. So it's like him, this producer friend, and they've got this extra passenger, just some rich guy I think they sort of peripherally know. And so they decide to cut his oxygen off. The guy, the Tom Cruise is just gleefully describing the situation, how his lips are starting to turn blue, and he's just, "How you doing back there?" He said, "I was kinda tired." Like, he's gleefully, you gotta find it, dude. I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't had it scrubbed from the internet because it's kinda evil, but he's just so gleeful in this, yeah, like, it was just like, this guy might have brain damage kinda thing, but, like, I think Tom Cruise is, like, a fascinating dude, like, you add to that the whole Dianetics thing and, like, other actors. People are fascinated, they always wanna know what is it like working with Tom Cruise, and, like, I guess he was kinda Christian early on, and, like, he didn't party or anything, and, for years when I worked in Hollywood, everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, Tom Cruise is gay," like, and nobody knew it, and that was, like, a great big cover up. He's a fascinating dude, and I guess I mean, we gotta say he has that star quality, plus he does his own stunts.
I mean, yes, he does, and I give him credit for that. Also have never understood why that's such a big thing. Like, I don't have any objection to actors who, swap out for stunt doubles. Like,
I don't either, but it
that's not
says
your
something
gig,
about
man.
the guy, you know what I mean?
It
That's the kind of
does.
quality for the people that wanna climb Everest without oxygen, It takes a certain sort of type A, like, weirdo to wanna run around the fucking, ledge of a 30-story building, untethered when they
Yeah.
could just have a pro do it. I mean, that says something about the guy. He's interesting. I think he's probably a total sociopath. I mean,
I don't know. I think he's fascinating. What I do like about him, and from people who I know who know him very well, is like his work ethic, not just in the stunts, is off the charts. And he's one of the rare people or rare actors who, as a producer, is actually producing, who actually gets into the muck and does the work necessary to make a project. And I respect that. I have to
Yeah,
respect
I've
that.
never heard a bad word ever about his work ethic. I mean,
Yeah.
he's like a, the Russell Wilson, Tom Brady type. Like, he's just like always the most prepared guy in the room. Um, we don't
I,
have to stay on, oh, go.
no, I mean, there's so many movies that I want to talk about. I want to talk about Citizen Ruth. I think that satire is the genre that Americans get wrong the most, and frankly, don't even try that often. But I think Citizen Ruth is the great American satire.
That is so interesting to me because it's my least favorite Alexander Payne movie. I
Really?
hate it. I hate it. Well, I'll say why. I have a problem with satire in general. And I'm coming from more of a literary standpoint here because, like, reviewers never give any weight or props to comedy when it's mixed with the pathos. They never talk about when they talk about comedy and literature, it's always satire. And for me, satire is kind of safe. Like I want pathos and I want the dirtiness of the human experience and the vulnerability to it. Satire to me is so safe because you're the social critic. You're coming from up high, from remove, and you're making your commentary. It's social commentary, whether it's wrapped in science fiction, however you're doing it, it's social commentary, and that always and this is subjective, I guess, but that always feels really safe to me. That's so interesting because I really love Alexander Payne for the pathos. My two least favorite films by him are Citizen Ruth and Election, which is great style-wise, but again, I prefer something like The Descendants or Sideways, where it's like there's just a lot of pathos, like you just feel for the character. So tell me why you think Americans get satire wrong and why you think Citizen Ruth is great when it's not.
I want to just say that I'm with you. I like comedy that is based in humanity. Otherwise, it's not really comedic to me. Then it's jokes. What I love about Citizen Ruth, it's what I think it gets right about satire that Americans typically get wrong, is that it's really easy to satirize something and just take on one person or group of people or one idea and drag them down. That's easy. To me, the secret of good satire is having this jaundiced view of every single person in every single position. And what I love about Citizen Ruth, it takes this really touchy subject of abortion, and it just denigrates every single person on both sides of the debate. And I really admire that.
What you just said, I totally admire that in theory. I mean, that's a balanced, persuasive argument. I always appreciate balance that way, like lamb-based everybody. I guess I use that word antic a lot when it feels antic to me. Even, it was Laura Dern, right?
Yes.
It's been a while. And I love Laura Dern. Even her performance, I don't know, dude. Well, this is the first one
It's interesting because I can see what you're saying because it is over the top, and it's a style of comedy that Alexander Payne has not gone back to, obviously. Burt Reynolds is over the top in that movie, but bless him for doing so. It may be my favorite Burt Reynolds moment.
For me, the ultimate Burt Reynolds is, Deliverance. He's so awesome. He's so
not comedic.
not comedic, but just awesome. Like he's just so I buy him. All right, I'm liking your list. Go.
I want to, so many of these came to me as just representative of somebody like, and I could name multiple projects.
Right. I ran into that with the Coen brothers.
Yeah, it was a good place to go with that too. I'm thinking of Armando Iannucci, who I think is another great satirist and comedic writer. Responsible for Veep, which was, really sort of an American offshoot of The Thick of It. But the movie I'm thinking about is In the Loop with James Gandolfini and so many people. But it's great political satire again. So I'm going to that form that you hate.
So In the Loop, and that's clearly they're referencing DC. I don't even know this film. I think I've heard of it, but this is the first one we've even broached that I have not seen. I like Gandolfini.
Really must. You really must. Do you like Veep? Did you like Veep?
I maybe watched 2 episodes.
Wow.
Well, I'm kind of a pop culture idiot, dude. I mean, I never have cable and stuff like that. That I might even been a network show. I don't even have network television, dude. I live in a cabin in the mountains that, I have 1,000 DVDs. That's our screen entertainment. Like once in a while when I'm on tour, I'll binge watch a Netflix show. I mean, look, I just finished Better Call Saul. All right.
Wow.
10 years after the fact. So, I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that. I mean, I'm a student of the game, but when I have time, I try to read books because, you are what you eat. And I'm not even doing a very good job of that.
I'm Johnny. I'm a writer. Woo!
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
that's fucking nice. Right, buddy. Say that was put some respect on that name, Warren. I don't think I like your attitude here. Hey, can we talk about, speaking of people with a broad range of comedies, maybe we don't have to stick to one. And I think we can agree it does get a little formulaic. And I will even say that I think it gets a little weaker each time, kind of like the films of Wes Anderson. I feel that way about just his general.
Don't start.
Okay. Oh, we can. That's good. I like a lot. Christopher Guest.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, I love Spinal Tap. That's a Rob Reiner gig, but it's so much about. So you don't like Waiting for Guffman.
No, I do. I do. I like Spinal Tap. I like Waiting for Guffman. I like Best in Show. And then I agree that since then, whatever Mighty Wind and the For Your
Waiting for Purim or
Consideration.
what? Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I
no.
would agree. And I think part of that is, well, first of all, it becomes too familiar with that ensemble. But I also think, I think they have less and less time to shoot and workshop each one. You know what I mean? Because there's been a lot of stars made from those, I mean, from those first two, Best in Show. Like, I think a lot of people got busier after their roles in that thing, and I think they shot that one in like 3 months, and then by the time they got to the Waiting for Purim or whatever, the one about the play or whatever, I think they shot in like 3 weeks. So I think that doesn't help. Then I mean, there's some pretty great stuff in the folk singing one. I love Eugene Levy as Mitch. Like, it would be great to see the little train town with leaves in fall. I mean, he's pretty awesome, dude.
Well, you can't like the thing about his stuff that works is that he really has a great ensemble of comedic actors. You're not going to go wrong. They're going to create something. I just, I do feel like the formula gets a little tired. I want to bring up a theory and see what you think about it. But the other thing I want to say, and I'm going to tease and I'm not going to deliver, is that I've conducted around 4,000 interviews with people, and I've got to say that Christopher Guest may have been the most unpleasant person I've encountered. So that
Unbelievable. You just ruined an idol for me.
sorry, I'll tell you offline. But
Unbelievable. Oh, this is too juicy. Yeah, thanks for not delivering it, tease. Well, you do have to tell me because, I mean, he's kind of a comic idol of mine, and now you've just ruined him.
it'll be a podcast sequel. So it's like most unpleasant people to deal with. But the theory I wanted to mention, and it's one that Alexander Payne talks about with directors. It's not his idea, but it also is true of comedic actors and comedic filmmakers, that a comedic filmmaker, comedic actor has about a 10-year window of relevance, and then it's over.
Yeah, Woody Allen, Mel Brooks. Yeah, I mean, I can,
And not just relevance, but just sort of like that they appeal. So, and I think about like Will Ferrell had a nice 10-year run. Now I find a lot of his stuff irksome. There are people who are funny for a little while. Jack Black was funny for about 5 years or something like that. I don't know.
Once you can figure out that they had themselves have a comic formula, like Will Ferrell, here's his comic formula: super expressive face, dead eyes. If you look at him, the eyes are dead, and then it's the 0 to 60. It's like best typified in the barbecue skit where he's like, oh, they're just all pleasant in the back. Get off the fucking shed. You know what I mean? That 0 to 60, and then the dead eye, super, like even when he's being the male cheerleader and he's dancing, his eyes are dead. And once you can kind of locate the secret ingredient in the recipe of a guy, then it becomes, again, to use that word, a little antic. You see what you see the lack of range.
Yeah, you see the shtick. I mean, I could say the same thing about dramatic actors. We were talking about Pacino before. It's like Pacino's become a parody of himself because he's just asked to do the same thing, the same sort of 0 to 60, just without the comedy.
Yeah, which is hard for me. I got really drunk one night and I did a dead-on Al Pacino for about 2 hours. I even recorded some on my phone. Never been able to recapture it. It was good. I sounded just like him. I was phrasing just like him because, I can do a few impersonations, but I've never got it back. It just happened one night. It was just alcohol, I guess.
The joys of alcohol.
Yeah, that's another show.
So
speaking of which, I got to say, I think didn't we have you on the radio once where we got you so inebriated back when in my radio days?
That
Warren
was on Kennedy's show.
Oh, it was on Kennedy's show. I think I might have been sidekicking that day though. I was in the studio. Warren, we did an experiment with Warren where he got so drunk that the paramedics had to come. That was 90s hot talk radio for you right there.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Did you get through your theory or did I sidetrack you?
No, it was the theory is this thing that, like, a comedic actor or filmmaker only has 10 years of relevance because after the 10 years, maybe we figured out the shtick and maybe we've just moved on. But, like, I see it all the time. It's like, oh, like Jim Carrey had his 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's like style. It's like bell
Yeah.
bottoms jeans, or you know what I mean. You could say the same thing about fashion, particularly if they don't change. Can I just wanted to I had to get your reaction because when I said the Wes Anderson thing, you're like, "Don't even get me started." I just need to find out if you agree or not. Like, the best film is Bottle Rockets, and then they just go down and down and down. It's all style. I think the guy would be like the most brilliant set designer ever kind of thing. Like, this stuff looks golden, but, like, the characters, it's just kind of plug and play. You got the same character dynamics going on a lot, and I just feel like he's really overrated.
I totally agree. I think he may be the most overrated filmmaker of our time. I can live with his movies because, again, fantastic production design, fun to see casts of a lot of
Yeah, I mean,
recognizable people
they're
doing their
totally
thing.
digestible, but
But
they're put on such a bed.
but the part that I can't stand is that he has had such an oversized impact on aspiring filmmakers. It's like Tarantino and Wes Anderson. And Wes Anderson has nurtured this whole crop of wannatoes, like just doing everything like, oh, look, it's straight on camera shot and everything's symmetrical and it's got really great colorful backdrop. Like, that's not filmmaking. That's oof.
It's
He makes
kinda
me
like
crazy.
Bob Dylan as an influence. I mean, like, God love Bob Dylan, but, like, every time I see a busking, singing like
Uh,
this, I just wanna take the guitar and hit him, or Neil Young. There's certain guys that they can do it, but that doesn't mean you can do it, you know?
yeah, and you shouldn't try. I don't understand the point of it. I
And
just
so this is a good time to talk about the Coen brothers because one of their movies, I had to pick one.
Mhm.
But here's filmmakers that have, I think, to me, some of the most incredible range of any filmmakers that have ever lived. They can do whatever they want. I mean, and they can do it good. And even their bad films, like I noticed, like The Lady Killers. People are always saying what a terrible movie that is. First of all, it's way better than the original with Sellers and Alec Guinness. But I thought Tom Hanks was freaking genius in that movie, and I've watched that movie like 5 times, and it's almost always rated last. That one and the divorce lawyer one, but they can just seem to do anything because they just have such a facility to. They just have so much range. But I put The Big Lebowski on, which you know it gets a lot of credit. You could make the argument that it's overrated because of that reason, because it occupies such a huge space in our culture because it has so many iconic lines and scenes in it. And it is a film that when I walked out of the theater, I thought, God, this was just an uneven mess. I enjoyed it because, I mean, you can't miss with, I mean, Jeff Bridges was great. You got John Goodman, Steve Buscemi. You have such a great cast and there's those funny parts, but like, I find that you can just watch it over and over and find new things. I mean, it's really a smart film. How do you
It
feel on that? I think it's a kind of a divisive film.
it's a very smart film. I just rewatched it very recently, so it's great to be talking about it. I don't know that it holds up for me. Like, my memory of it is better than my experience of it. That said, yeah, there's a ton that I love about it. I mean, there's a ton of great characterizations, and the Coen brothers, even when they're not 100%, are still more interesting than Wes Anderson could ever hope to be. So, I'm for it. It's not my choice. I was going through the Coen brothers and trying to think of what I'd put on that list, and I think, Fargo is the easy answer. I have to say my guilty pleasure, uh, there and it's sort of a sweet spot for me. I don't know why, but the Hudsucker Proxy, gets me
Oh,
every
it's a
time.
good one. Yeah. It's been a long time since it's probably my least watched Coen Brothers film. You know, the one that I think is overrated, and I totally agree, which I don't always do, with Roger Ebert on this, is Raising Arizona. And I find it unfulfilling and frustrating for the very reason that Ebert pointed out, which is like they couldn't make their mind up whether they wanted to give pathos to these characters or they were sort of or it was sneering contempt for them. Like, it never found that balance of pathos and humor, which is so central to me. Like, I want it to have both, but I just never. I mean, like, I generally like Nicolas Cage, but I thought his performance was over the top. That's probably my least favorite.
I hate to agree with you, but yeah, I think it is my least favorite, Coen brothers film.
And many people will rank that. You see lists. People will
Yeah.
rank that in the top 5 almost every time.
Yeah, I can't it just doesn't do it for me. I've never I didn't enjoy it the first time I saw it. I've seen it a bunch of times since, and I always think like, "Oh, there's something wrong with me," and then I go like, "No, I just I don't think it's all that funny. I really
Yeah, well,
don't."
I mean, you find this with books too. If the author can't decide how they feel about the characters, see, that's one thing. All my books are different. They have in common. There's no, and I'm not a sentimental writer. I'm usually unsentimental in a way, but like you can tell that I'm kind of rooting for the characters. I'm not going to
Mhm.
forsake them. I don't know. With that film, I just felt like they never decided. Um,
Yeah, I think they were not as sharp as they normally are. And,
okay,
I wanna say something for you and your writing, and that is, like, actors, make this big deal all the time, "Well, I have to love my character, I have to love my character." I always think, like, the thing that's amazing about good writers like yourself is that a good writer loves all of their characters on some level, and that's what
absolutely.
shines through in your work,
Thank
is
you. I
that
think the harder the character is to redeem, the more powerful the redemption. That's part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
You know.
also to me, the characters when I'm writing, like the ones that are most in need of redemption are probably the ones that are closest to something that I need to work through, and thus my compassion for them is the greatest. And if I can tap into that rather than judge it, we're onto something.
Well, thank you. That is a great compliment.
So you do it time and time again.
Oh,
So
stop.
kudos.
Oh,
Well,
stop.
well,
Go,
you won't.
go, go, go. Stop. No. Okay, what's next on your list?
There's so many. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that
I
fifth
want.
we can pick and choose now. We're
I
probably
I
not even gonna
I,
get to them.
I really. There's a guy. Uh, Down in Oregon, Chris Matheson, he co-wrote Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and we can, you know, talk about those films. But he's made a handful of movies on his own, which I have, some real affection for. Are they imperfect? Absolutely. But you can see an early, film of his called Mike the Detective, if you can find it, or Rapture Palooza, which I think is there on Netflix, probably with, right next to Fundamentals of Caring. But it's it's perfectly silly. It is, about the, rapture. It's about the apocalypse and, the devil's, desire to, like, sleep with this, teenage girl, while the dad tries to, protect her, and there's so much goofy humor in it, that I'll watch it. I'll
I've
watch
never
it.
heard of it. So Rapture-palooza,
Yeah,
one
and once
more.
again, I wanna forewarn people, it's not great. It's not great, but it's just like Chris has these flashes of comedic inspiration that I think very few do.
I think that it's okay when we talk about comedy to be a little uneven. I mean, if it provides us moments, those are the moments that are gonna stick with us. I mean, like, The Naked Gun is all about those moments that hit. There's like, I mean, it's so like there's a joke every line and 30% of them probably hit, but like those ones are pretty classic. Here's one for you that I just think is so unique. Could never be the Jared Hess could never do it again, but Napoleon Dynamite is just so sweet to me and so offbeat and quirky, and it was very much of its time. So you would almost expect that it wouldn't age well. You know what I mean? Because it's so much of that time, that quirky. I mean, we're dealing with kind of on the edge of the Wes Anderson thing here too, like Bottle Rockets or the early films with the quirky offbeatness, but it was just so purely independent. The fact that we didn't really know anybody in it just was so sweet and charming, and I find it's one I tend to come back to a lot because the kids love it too, and it kind of ruined some careers. I mean, like, John Heder can never be in anything again. I mean, I just can't watch him I mean, he is so Napoleon. It was like it's one of those things where it's a role you're born to play. Uncle Rico, like, you could say about that about almost everybody in the film.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't have the fondness for that movie, that many do. That doesn't mean that I don't like it. I agree with you, it's sort of lightning in a bottle situation. I do think John Hader's fantastic. I did just see him in something recently, and I can't remember what it was, and then I was sort of shocked, like, "Oh, that's John Hader." Like,
Oh my god,
maybe.
don't ever watch Benchwarmers. I mean, it may be the worst comedy I've ever seen in my life. My kids are like, "Boo, take it off. Do we really have to watch this?" It's like a terrible sort of Bad News Bears. Oh, it's so
I
bad.
I don't need to say that. But the the Hess brothers, just made a short film, 95 Senses, a couple years ago with, the voice of Tim Blake Nelson, and it's great. So they're capable of more. I just think, uh, that was a very special film. Napoleon Dynamite is a special film, which engenders special feelings.
Oh, good. That sounds a little diplomatic on your part. If you could see Warren's expression when he delivered that, he's just a classic. I'm trying not to offend here. It's like I just served him dinner and he is my guest. And it's like, oh, this is wonderful.
This is, yeah, that's a great aspect, thank you. Uh, I would wanna mention a film that, I don't think comes up on anybody's list at any point, and it's a film that you should appreciate for that character, for the pathos. There's a movie called The Object of Beauty, with John Malkovich and Andie MacDowell, and I find it funny. It's not like, "Whoa," funny, but it I like it because it shows how petty humans can be, and I love it, especially, humans who feel they have wealth and privilege, and should not be denied it. I think John Malkovich might be at his funniest in that film.
That's funny because he's not a guy you think of as comedy, but he can pull it off. And Annie McDowell is somebody who's not sort of like disarmingly likable. She's usually kind of, and I've met her, like when I lived in Missoula years and years and years ago, like I would see her at the same breakfast joint. She always had that big smile on. She was just always seemed so nice. So like, it sounds like kind of a different role for her. I can't believe I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and I'd say if people are gonna check it out, just watch the first 10 minutes of John Malkovich complaining about the price of a meal at a fancy Italian restaurant. That alone is worth it.
It sounds so believable.
I would like
You
to that just triggered something else I didn't have it on my list, but, like, there's some movies where, like, there's just a piece of it that is funny enough to make the rest worthwhile. I think Richard Shepard is a really underrated, comedic filmmaker. He's not doing that much of it now, but he made a couple films, The Matador, The Hunting Party, which I think are fun, funny, pieces, and he made another called Dom Hemingway, and again, I would just encourage people, watch the first 7 minutes of that movie and do with that what you will.
title again?
Dom, D-O-M, Hemingway,
Okay, I already forgot it.
and, I'll give it away, but I'll just say that Jude Law delivers the opening monologue in close-up while, receiving a blowjob, and
Okay.
it is, it's
Well, We'll
comedy
be
gold.
watching that one with my daughter.
You don't
God, we
see
can't
the
do
actual blowjob.
any kissing or sex in any film. She's 12. She's like, yeah, why did you put on this? And she gets mad at us. Like anytime there's like a makeout scene, it could be a rom-com. So, there's going to be some kissing coming, and she just, man, I'm like, stay that way. Boys bad. Kissing boys bad. Just never. Just,
Strangely, Woody showed it to Sunyi all the time. I don't know.
ouch.
Oh,
Tasteless.
okay.
Just tasteless, Warren.
I'm sorry.
Okay, here's one
Ideally.
of mine for most laughs per minute. I don't know how well. I don't even I don't even know how politically incorrect it is, but oh my God, just side-splitting laughter, and every time I watch it, and it's Borat. I'm sorry, the first one. The second one was a little earnest for me. The thing with the baby was hilarious, but it became a little politically too earnest. And see, I don't like polemical humor. Earlier, we were talking about like skewering when you talked about Citizen
Right.
Ruth, skewering people on both sides. I know where
Yeah.
I stand. I'm I'm a
Right.
lefty, but like I don't like when my comedy or any my literature in general becomes polemical. And so the second one did that for me, but the first one, oh my God, there's just so many moments like you just oh God, did he just say that? Like I can tell from your expression you don't love it as much. It just makes me like, how can you not love him and that fat guy wrestling and like the
Oh,
blacking out the dick with the, like the 14-inch black I mean, it's just, oh my God, there's just so many.
I'm totally with you. I love the first Borat, and then the second one, no, not so much. And Sacha Baron Cohen is a hard person for me to figure out because I do think Borat's a genius. I was never that into the Ali G show, but
There were some moments in that Bruno, I just can't. I tried to watch the Bruno film.
Yeah.
It just leans so heavily on the raunch. But I mean, I remember parts about the Ali G show I liked,
right.
but it was kind of a one-trick pony. Like,
Yeah, and again, I think, to me, it's a weird thing to say because, as a fellow lefty, it's not out of some great desire to protect, the right or the conservative, but on a certain level, in the second Borat film and even in Bruno, I feel like it's a little bit of somehow he's managed to elevate himself to punch down. at people I disagree with, and I just find it lazy.
I think that's a good I would agree with that. That's a good way of putting it.
And it segues into one of the films I like least, and I'm so grateful to my brain for forgetting the title right now, but Adam McKay's piece of crap, that was made for Netflix, the quote unquote satire with, Jennifer Lawrence and, Leo DiCaprio about, the end of, the potential end of the earth. Did you see that thing?
Oh, is it called Don't Look Up or something like
That's
that?
it, Don't Look Up.
I
Don't look
don't even I watched it. I don't even
uh,
remember, so that
it
doesn't say a lot.
that to me is a movie that proves what satire should not do. Like, that just mocks, people who disagree with Adam McKay, and I find it lazy and stupid, and sort of what you just said, I think is so important. It's like, you already know what you think. You already know where you stand. I already know what I think, and I already know where I stand. I watch things and read things to actually have that pushed and tested and prodded a little bit. I don't need somebody celebrating the fact that theoretically we have a superior opinion. I find it lazy, arrogant, and time sucking.
Yeah, I mean, as an artist personally, I don't think it's my job to edify anybody with my worldview. I mean, I think the job of the artist, as much as anything, A, report on the human condition, but B, stimulate the questions, start the dialogue, is to present the material in such a way that it begs questions. People have to question, it asks the big questions. I don't answer them. I mean, I've written 3 novels about, hey, is the American experiment made great on all its big promises? I mean, I think we mostly know the answer to that. But I mean, like, it's more to start I think a work of art's job is to create a dialogue that continues after the work of art is done. It's not the end all. This is if you're trying to achieve that, I think you're failing from the first step.
And what film raises those questions better than Attack of the Killer Monkey Brains?
Oh God, we can't end there. So Attack of the Killer Monkey Brain was a film, Warren was in it, one of the leading men, that I made on a bet with Lloyd Kaufman, who I'd done a radio show with in Portland. And Lloyd was actually more interested in filming me squirreling stuff in my scrotum, like car keys, fobs. Sorry, not a big package, but a lot of wrapping. And I could put large things in there. And Lloyd was fascinated. He was right up in there with his Super 8 camera. Do that here. See if you can do here. Here's a baseball. But then I made a bet with him that I could make a film on $40 or something like that. And thus Attack of the Killer Monkey Brain was born. And it was not good. Warren, you were good. You had
Thank
a
you.
very, very much I would say you were very much in the Gilbert Gottfried, and not one you're, a comparison you're not
Yeah.
unfamiliar with, I think.
Yeah.
What I learned about myself is I'm a horrible actor. I'm the most wooden actor ever. I could talk on a microphone or in front of a camera, but the minute you give me a line, forget about it. I'm so wooden, which is interesting because writing a narrative, the skill sets are similar, right? Get out of your own way, kind of inhabit the character. I can do that in a cerebral way, but my body won't cooperate.
I totally get it. And I just like to say, since his death, I think I've become less like Gilbert Gottfried. I think I was freed, freed of that
God,
practice.
you've been Godfried.
Yeah.
Oh, I did it again.
See what
All
you did
right,
there.
we're running out of time.
Okay.
I want to give you one last finish big here, Warren. No pressure.
Oh,
But I want to. You didn't save anything. You're,
know I ha-
you're
I
all the way
have
down to the
stuff.
man with 2 brains too.
no, I. You want one last? Okay. One of my favorite comedic actors, and I bet I would not like him in person, is Steve Coogan. And I could take his Alan Partridge series. There's so many things he's done that I think he's brilliant in. And I guess for this list, I chose The Trip. It's a very simple, Michael Winterbottom film, just him and Rob Brydon on the road, eating at fancy restaurants and sort of providing a review. But it's really about the interplay between the two of them and doing impressions and making each other laugh. And it's really simple, straight comedy. And Steve Coogan's ability to embody the pompous ass is on par with no one.
Yeah, the simpler it is, the more performance based it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Like the simpler it is, the more chops you have to pull it off. Well, I want to thank you, Warren. He is Warren Etheredge. Look him up. Where do we look? Do we look film producer? We look film curator. You would now hold the record, I think the Guinness Book World Record for seeing the most short films, right? I mean,
I believe so.
yeah. And
40,000 or so.
and there, how many of them were bad? Give me a percent. 36,412.
You're probably really close. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
I see. It's hard.
Yep.
So thank you, Warren. Anything you want to plug before we say goodnight?
If you like short films, come to the Walla Walla Movie Crush and go to themoviecrush.com to learn more. But read Johnny's books, for goodness sakes.
Well, you can get gooned online. Walla Walla's a great wine town. I don't like wine. I'm a beer guy, but
Yeah.
there's, it's a good place to get gooned and watch some short films. They'll be even shorter that way.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Warren, for
Thank
joining
you.
us on A Fresh in Hell. It's been great catching up with you, bud. A Fresh Face in Hell with Jonathan Evison is brought to you by Fresh Face Pods and produced by Jason Botkin and yours truly. Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, or at our website at freshfacepods.tv. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for updates and special content. And if you love the podcast, by all means, run out and buy all of Jonathan Evison's award-winning novels wherever books are sold.